Welcome back to episode 5. Can you believe it, Dr. Hout? We've done 5 of these things
I
now.
cannot.
I know, this is
Definitely
crazy.
can't.
So guys, welcome back. This is episode 5 of Real Talk with Holistic Docs. And today we are doing the 4th installment of our series on the 4 pillars of beating stress and anxiety holistically. So if you guys remember, the first pillar that we talked about was the inner dimension, right? So this was all about having purpose, spirituality, intention in your life. Pillar number 2 was the interpersonal dimension. So that's all about relationships. Pillar number 3 is behaviors. So this is your sleep habits, your eating habits, what type of supplements that you're taking, all those types of things that you physically do, right? So today we're talking about pillar number 4, which is the external pillar. So this is the environmental piece of things. As I like to say, this is where your human meat suit happens to be existing in space at a particular time, right? So what do you come into contact with in your environment that is affecting your body?
Yep.
Right? And this is a topic that both Dr. Hout and I really enjoy because we've both noticed in our own lives times when we were in environments that seem to have a negative impact on our health and well-being or have a positive impact on our health and well-being. So Dr. Hout, you want to just talk about maybe like a couple times that you've noticed personally an impact on yourself?
Yeah. I think we were sort of touching on this before, but when I'm in an environment that it's kind of like knowing too much, right? I know that there's certain things in my environment that are harming me that kind of psychs me out and makes me feel like, oh my God, I'm doing something bad for myself. Or like if I'm in a place where the food is not great and I don't want to eat it, I've definitely gotten eyes rolled at me because I'm like, well, I'm not eating that because that's, sugar or not organic. But that matters. Every little piece of food that I put in my body, every piece of smoke that I inhale, every piece of, I don't know, mold that I touch becomes part of my total body burden. And I don't want that to get out of control, and I want to reduce that as much as possible. So I do try to control my environment a lot. And I think at this point it's become a little bit automatic to the point where I just won't go to a certain place if I know that I didn't feel good there because I smelled too many fumes or what have you. So that's all part of this external pillar. And it's kind of like behavioral because you can control where you go and what you eat. But it's like kind of the cusp of where behavioral meets the external environment. Which is
Absolutely. So, and I kind of have a personal story about that too. So when I was in my undergraduate degree in college, so I worked very, very briefly, and you'll see why in just a second, at Charlotte Russe in the mall. So I know, right? Can you picture it?
No.
So inside the Charlotte Russe, so we've all been in them before, right? Like if you're a female, chances are you've been inside a Charlotte Russe. So you can picture it. It's bright, bright lights, pounding music. There's whatever kind of perfume spray that they have just floating around there, like wafting into your nostrils at every single second. And then added to that, when you work there, they also have a headset on.
Oh no.
Literally, people are talking in your ear all day long as you're trying to then converse with customers, make a sale, work on the cash register. Like all of those things are happening at once. And I remember when I was working there, it was like my brain stopped working. I couldn't think straight. I had headaches every single day when I came home. It was an absolute nightmare. And I think of that as just kind of like, that is the picture of what environmental overload looks like, right? You've got crazy bright lights. You've got overstimulating smells, overstimulating noises. Literally everything is just like an assault on your nervous system. And so I lasted there, and I kid you not, a month because I was I couldn't do it. It was miserable. It was miserable.
Maddening. It sounds terrible. I didn't know
horrible.
that.
Oh yeah.
Out there.
It was awful. So I mean, and that is just like and a lot of people are in that type of situation, right? That type of work environment or home environment or what have you, where things are basically just like an assault on your senses. Whether or not you realize it, those things have a very real impact. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the major bullet points around
Okay.
cleaning up your external environment.
Yep.
So number one, I kind of briefly touched on how important having a home and work environment that's healthy is. So what are some things that people can do to create a home and work environment that supports their overall health and well-being?
Yeah. So aside from the physicality of it, I think where you live and where you work should bring you joy, whatever that means. So if it's the job itself that is not bringing you joy, maybe we have to change that. But the physical environment, like your desk, your chair, when you sit in it, does that bring you comfort and joy? Do your pens, do you like them? Is the wall a certain color that brings you joy? If not, change it. So there's that. The other thing is having too much stuff has never helped anyone feel comfortable in any space. It's actually really overwhelming. So the Marie Kondoing thing that everyone is getting really into is really, really important. I really enjoy how I feel when I get rid of stuff.
Yeah.
And have a clean slate in my apartment or in my office from which to work. It's very, I don't know, it's satisfying and serene to like get rid of stuff and also to look at a space that isn't cluttered. So there's that. Another thing I think that is becoming a little more popular now is plants inside the house. So everywhere you look on Instagram now, everybody has these really cool pictures of plants. And it's just really comforting and calming to look at these living creatures within your home, and to take care of them is also, you know, another task in and of itself. I've killed way too many plants in my time, but I'm finally getting there. So I think we were discussing this before, but having plants in your environment actually does help you focus, and it brings in, I think you can call them plant pheromones, right? Into your environment that helps you do whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's studying, trying to relax, sleep, recover from illness. So that's another piece of it.
So two things I want to say about plants real quick. So number one, there's a lot of research that's been done in the conventional medical world. So these are, you know, what do you call them? the studies, the research that they do. Oh my gosh, I've just been blanking on the gold standard, whatever.
Okay.
You know what I'm trying to say. Gold standard style studies that have been done on what's called optimal healing environments. So these are places like hospitals where people are recovering from very real illnesses. And these studies show that people who have a window in their room so they can see the outdoors, and importantly, that window faces some types of greenery, so like trees or grass or something like that, versus a brick wall. People who can actually see greenery heal faster, leave the hospital sooner, and have improved outcomes.
That's right.
Same thing is true if they've got like a plant inside their or something like that. Second thing I want to say about plants is that a lot of them are capable of actually cleaning out some of the chemicals that we come into contact with. So some of the fumes that come off of our furniture, our carpets, paint, things like that, some of them can also help to kill like mold and things. Obviously, you know, more from just like, you have the aesthetic part of it where it's just like, it's pleasing to your mind. And there's a whole, there's this whole theory of something called forest bathing that people do. There's actually been research done on this too. You know, people will literally just go out into the forest and for like a week, and this has an incredible healing impact on the body. So what can you do to bring the outside inside as much as possible? That's what bring the outside inside as much as you possibly can to create a pleasing home and work environment. And we also, Dr. Hout and I realized that not everyone has the capability to leave their current job if they don't like it. Or, you know, sometimes these types of circumstances, these are things that you just can't change. But again, this is where you have to focus on what you can control, right? So like Dr. Hout was talking about, like, stock your desks with some pens that you like. Buy a chair that you enjoy. Put some pictures up that make you happy. You might not be able to change the job, but you can change the little things around it that maybe remind you why you're there. and bring a little spot of happiness into your day.
Yeah, personalize it. I have my entire office is personalized.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the color of the wall is beige, which is not my chosen color, but everything else here is pink. There's sparkles. I have a flower pen. Look at this guy. I mean, this thing makes me so happy.
For those of you who don't personally know Dr. Hout, this is like her, and she is like human unicorn.
Yes, that's true. I have a unicorn in here. It's over there, actually. Anyway.
Okay, so let's move on. So on that note, creating a place inside your home or work environment or whatever where you feel like you can escape to, like it's your own personal area where you've got maybe little mementos and totems and things like that, like stuff that brings you joy, stuff that makes you happy. For me, like I've got basically a corner of my room where I have a salt lamp, some pictures I like, some plants and stuff like that. And then when I have like quiet time for myself, that's where I sit and that's where I go. And that's like my personal safe spot.
Yeah.
And this doesn't necessarily have to be inside your house. This could be somewhere outside, like a park bench that you like, but that's your safe spot. That's where you go to have quiet time, to feel like you can recenter.
Speaking of recentering, when I do these meditation apps all the time, and they talk about finding like a space in your house. Maybe you have a special meditation pillow that you sit on that brings you relaxation. So when you sit on that pillow, that is like you're saying, you're like your sacred space, your me time that you get to enjoy for yourself, and you take care of yourself in that spot. So it's kind of the same situation.
Yeah.
And maybe you put a plant next to it.
Plants everywhere, guys.
Yeah.
Plants all over the place. If you take nothing else from this, just go buy a bunch of plants. Really though, I do think that would do a lot of good.
I think so too.
If the one thing you did today was went out and bought a plant and put it in your office or your bedroom, I'm cool with that.
So the whole reason we even got plants was because we were concerned about the air quality in our apartment. So we got, we obviously get it cleaned and we have a HEPA filter, but the plants I think really have helped not only with the energy, but with the air quality too, because my counterpart has sinuses that react a lot to things. And I think it's been better since we got the plants, which is really so.
Yeah, that's one of included on my treatment protocol for all of my asthma, allergy. Talk about the type of plants that they should use. My two favorite are the English ivy and the snake plants.
Well, yes. The snake plants are the best. You can't kill them.
You literally cannot kill them.
Nope.
They're amazing. I forgot to water mine for like 2 months one time, and it grew somehow. It got bigger. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. So next point, avoid sensory overload.
Right, we already talked about this a little
bit. This is literally, guys, what I was talking about with my experience working at Charlotte Russe. 100% complete sensory overload. And what that does is it activates your sympathetic nervous system. So it tells your body that you're in danger. Right?
Yep. We already talked about that first episode or second episode, right?
Absolutely. So some of the things that can cause sensory overload: bright lights, specifically fluorescent overhead lights. So switching to floor lamps with the incandescent bulbs, good move.
So much better,
Yeah. Really loud and aggressive music.
Oh yeah, no.
That's another thing.
It actually makes me angry now when I like drive by a car that has really loud music that's infiltrating my quiet car. I'm like, dude.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? Like when I was a teenager, I used to love that. I used to love this, like cranking my music up super loud and being really annoying to other people.
Yeah.
Why do we do the things we do when we're teenagers?
So angsty. I don't know.
Okay, so music, screens are another thing. So screens are again a source of light.
Yeah.
And the type of light.
The blue light.
Is the blue light. So the blue light that they produce actually gives your body a stimulating signal saying basically, this is daytime, you need to amp up. Which is why when we're talking about sleep, it's so important to eliminate screen time at least 2 hours before bedtime. For people who are just starting this, I would say 1 hour before, but ideally you want to go 2 hours.
Yeah, I think the blue light from screens diminishes your melatonin for 72 hours after
Yeah,
you looked at it.
that's pretty.
That's 3 days of reduced melatonin.
Yeah, that's really significant.
So
Really,
like every day, you're just
yeah,
end up with no melatonin at the end of the week,
yeah,
basically.
yeah. So for people who have, again, exposure to blue light constantly, like say you work a desk job and you're behind a computer all day, that's a reality. So don't get caught up in the I can't do anything about it type thing.
You can.
You can, and
Yeah.
there's something called blue light blocking glasses that you can
Yep.
wear. These used to be incredibly hideous, and they
Right.
were like these amber colored, like look like welder's glasses.
Yep.
There was
Sure
no
did.
other option.
I
But
have
now
that.
there are amazing companies who are making really, really nice glasses that
Yeah.
you can honestly you can buy on Amazon. Just Google blue light blocking glasses. There's
Yep.
also a company called Felix Gray. Um,
Uh-huh.
and they have really great glasses, and they can also put prescriptions into them too.
Perfect. That's
Beautiful,
awesome. You
beautiful.
can
So,
also get an app, I think it's not available on the phones, but on your computers it's called Flux,
oh yeah,
F.lux.
yeah,
And it just changes your screen color so that it significantly reduces the blue light coming out of it. So
right,
if you
exactly.
wear glasses, you can do that.
Yeah, and if you have Apple products too,
Mhm.
there's a little switch that you can put on
Yes.
your phone and your computer called Night Shift, and that
Yep.
just changes it to more of a red hue. And
Yep.
I actually have that on all day.
Me too.
So
Yep.
I don't have some people when they look at my screen, they're like, "What is wrong with your screen?"
Why is it so red? Yeah.
So, anyways,
Yeah.
those are just some simple things you can do to avoid sensory overload in your life.
Mhm.
The next thing that we wanted to talk about was getting outside,
Yes.
which kind of ties in really well with avoiding the sensory overload because this is how you recover from the
Right.
sensory overload,
Right.
right? If you have too much time working behind a screen, being basically overstimulated by loud music, noises, situation like all bright lights, all that stuff. One of the best things you can do is just go camping for the weekend.
Nature. Yep. That's right.
Yeah.
Totally brings everything back down to parasympathetic.
Yep, absolutely. And again, there have been studies that show that people who go outside, so people who have messed up circadian rhythms,
Mhm.
meaning like they're having a hard time falling asleep at night, they wake up, they're maybe have a reverse cortisol curve where they're
Yeah.
super energized at the end of the day, but just lack energy for the rest of the day. If they go outside and they camp for a week and you fall asleep when the sun goes down, wake up when the sun rises, your circadian rhythm normalizes
Yep.
within a week.
Yep.
It's pretty amazing.
It is.
And again, that speaks to the power of these screens and blue lights, these artificial lights that we are exposed to on a daily basis, because those
And
are
the
the things
power of
that
the
keep
sun.
us up. And
Right.
the power of the sun.
Yeah. So I have to say, I am not the kind of person who will go on a week-long camping trip. I'm a princess. So if you're like me, what you can do is wake up in the morning and just the first thing you do is go outside into the sun. Even if there's no sun, let the light of the air hit your eyes maybe for 15, 20, 30 minutes so that you can accustom yourself to the circadian rhythm of the sun first thing in the morning to reset yourself.
Exactly. And it's also really helpful too to go outside at sunset.
Yeah, right.
Let your eyes adjust to the changing colors, right? Because you're sending a signal to your brain.
Yep. That's right.
That it's time to calm down. It's time to wind down and get ready for sleep.
Yep.
Yeah. And then in places too where so say you live in Portland and it's gray outside all the time. There are sun lamps that you can buy.
Yep, we have one of those.
I would highly recommend you buying one of those, and then for 15 to 20 minutes every morning, you could even be just working at your desk, getting ready for the day, just have it pointing at you. And again, that's just going to start to reset the circadian rhythm. Yeah.
We have one of those too, because it's always dreary here. So.
I've never had to worry about having one of those because I'm from San Diego, so like we have sun all the time, except for the last couple months, which has been a really interesting winter out here. It's been really, really gray and rainy and totally unlike the San Diego that I remember growing up in. But I know it's great because we're finally drought free, which is awesome. But it has also made me realize how much of a sun junkie I am and how hard it is for me to function when I don't have exposure to sun.
Mm-hmm. You got it good.
I got it good.
Over there. Yeah.
Anyways,
Anyways.
last but not least, considering your environmental toxin exposure.
Oh, yes.
You want to take this one away, Hout?
Yeah, this requires an episode in and of itself, which I think we're going to do in the near future here, but this is all about your total body burden. So what I was talking about earlier with, not feeling good when I go to certain places or eat certain things, it's because I know those things probably don't have a low toxic exposure. They probably have a higher toxic exposure, and I want to stay away from that. So this is kind of speaking to a very broad category of things. We're talking about chemicals in your environment. We're talking about things that you can and can't see, things that you can and can't control, like what your HOA sprays outside you can't control, but you can control what you spray inside your house. Mm-hmm. It also involves whether or not you microwave your food, whether you have a lot of sources of EMF in your environment, what kind of foods you eat, whether it's organic or it has pesticides. We're not even going to talk about sugar right now. We can, but I don't think that's what we're here to do with this pillar. So where do you want to start? You want to start with metals? Or you want to start with pesticides?
Wherever you want to start. Okay. Wherever you want to start. Hey, you know what? Let's start with food, because that's the thing. Honestly, that's the thing that we're most exposed to.
Yeah, right. So every piece of food that you put in your mouth, you get to choose. Somebody else is not choosing that for you. So you get to decide if it's organic or not, if there is a lot of sugar in it or not, if you buy it from a farmer that doesn't use pesticides, or you buy it from who knows, I'm not going to curse, who knows where. So all of that matters. So at the end of your life, you want to have accumulated the least amount of toxins possible, because you don't want to get to your 40s or 50s and suddenly have a whole slew of diseases pop out at you because you didn't pay attention to the things that you put in your body willfully.
Yeah.
Right? So that's food in terms of pesticides. Foods in terms of plastics we have to talk about too. So when you eat food that comes out of a can or a plastic bottle or a microwavable tin, you have to realize that you're not just eating the food, you're eating the things that were in the container of the food. Mm-hmm. Right? So yes, there's BPA-free plastic, but there's also BPS and BPF and BPQ, probably.
So all the letters of the alphabet.
All the letters. They just took that one letter and changed it a little bit. So having food that you prepared on your own without it having been in a plastic container for years or even months or weeks is really important, because the food, when you cook it in a microwave, is going to have all that garbage leach into it, and you're going to eat that.
Yeah.
I think we all know about not putting our water bottles out in the sun, with plastic water bottles in the sun, and then drinking that water. It's the same.
They might. Some people don't know that.
Okay, so when you have those horrible plastic bottles that you shouldn't be using anyway, the single-use plastic, you stick it in your car with the water in it, and then it sits out there overnight, and then you go and drink that water. You're now drinking plasticized water.
Mm-hmm. And that honestly is something that a lot of people need to consider, because when you may not be physically doing that yourself, but you have to also think about what it takes for that plastic bottle to get from the manufacturer to the grocery store where you pick it up. And most of the time that means it's sitting in a hot truck for days.
Yeah.
Or it's sitting in a warehouse for days where it's hot, and that the heat and the sunlight combined, but mostly the heat is what allows the leaching of those chemicals. Yeah. So you may not personally be putting those water bottles in heat or anything like that, but that doesn't mean that the companies that have manufactured those bottles and brought them to you have been as aware or cautious.
That's true. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah. And that very nicely brings us into the realm of plastics elsewhere. So plastic food containers that you cook your food and put it into, that's still leaching plastic into your food, unfortunately. And then so that leads to things like estrogen dominance disorders, like PCOS. Huge problem. You can't you have to get rid of all of the plastic and all the garbage that isn't glass or stainless steel, because you don't want to add extra toxicity to your very clean, healthy food that you've gone through so much trouble to go get, right?
Right. Right.
And then, of course, that brings us to the problem of other environmental estrogens, like basically anything that smells good. So you got your candles, you got your cleaners, you got your perfumes, unfortunately. You have your self-care products like creams and stuff, shampoos, body washes, lotions, all of that. You have to be really aware. And I know it sounds like a lot, but you have to be really aware that all of your self-care items don't have chemicals in them. And there's lots of great brands right now that are being very mindful of that, and they only use natural products.
Name some of your favorites.
Okay, this is my favorite. If I wasn't doing medicine, I would be doing beauty, okay, and fashion. We all know this. So, my number one favorite brand is 100% Pure. Fabulous. There's another one called Juice Beauty, basically the same thing. Their line of products is a little bit more conservative. Let's see, we have, I think it's pronounced Audacity, Odacite. Okay. They have basically just serums and creams and masks and stuff. Oh man, there's so many. I have a list somewhere because I need to make a list of all these things. But those are some brands that are really excellent and don't have garbage in them.
Yeah. And then as far as like home cleaners go and everything, so I recently discovered a company called Branch Basics.
Yes.
And I love their products for home cleaners. Also, Myers Clean Day is really good. Method, that's another good one. There's also a new brand that I just discovered through Amazon. So you guys, these things are available on Amazon. Called Clean Cold. They are use plastic-free packaging too, which is awesome.
Perfect. I love that. Speaking of plastic-free packaging, the Lush stores, they have those shampoos that are just bars and stuff. Like, that's brilliant.
Great. Yeah, that's a really good point. That's a really good point. Yeah.
You can also
we should do a whole episode later about how to reduce plastic use.
Yeah.
That's another really important thing to discuss because, you know, not only are we as people responsible for being stewards of our own health, but we're responsible for being stewards for the health of the environment as well.
Yeah.
And the health of our environment in many ways reflects our own personal health and the amount of respect that we have for our own bodies. So, another episode idea.
Love that. Write that down.
Write it down. And then the last little piece in this kind of toxic exposure picture is your indoor air quality.
Yes.
So we spend so much time indoors, so much time. And even if you were just thinking about like when you go home to sleep, that's 8 hours.
Yeah.
If you're doing it right.
Right.
8 hours where you're breathing that air in. And so that air becomes really, really important. So you talked a little bit about HEPA filters. The plants are really great too. Something that can be underlying that you may not ever even see or know about is mold. Is common in areas that, like, you know, showers, kitchens, under the sink, places where you might just have a slow drip or something like that. That's never really fully, it's never really fully been fixed. A really interesting thing, so black mold is actually most common in areas where you've had a big flood that's then dried.
Right.
So remember this, that even if you've had an area that has been flooded and then dried, you can still have mold. So especially for people who have some of this kind of like oversensitive picture, so like people who are really sensitive to like smells and noises and things like that, maybe have some level of brain fog, chronic allergies, anxiety, fatigue. These are the types of people that I always recommend to get their indoor air quality checked. And there's an association. It's called the Indoor Air Quality Association.
Yes, that's right.
People are trained to come in and assess the quality of your indoor air and then make recommendations based off of that.
Yep.
So again, if you're someone who's has any sort of like chronic allergies, asthma, headaches, brain fog, anxiety, fatigue, like highly recommend you get your indoor air checked.
Yeah, and that's another form of basically brain pollution, right? Noise. It might not actually be noise through your ears or through your eyes, but your nose and your other senses are picking that up, and it's overwhelming your nervous system and your body. So it's just another way of thinking about that.
Right. Well, guys, that does it today. We could go on for hours about this.
Obviously.
We're probably going to have to create more episodes to just really dive in deeper on these things. So we're going to wrap it up here today. Dr. Hout, you want to tell people where they can find you and if there's anything that you're working on right now?
Yeah, I am in New Jersey, Merchantville, New Jersey, holisticdrhout.com. I am taking patients via telemedicine mainly right now. My main focus right now is actually kidneys and cardiovascular health. That was our first episode that we talked about. I've been diving real deep into it, and it's very interesting. I might just dedicate my entire practice to it at this point. We'll see.
Wow.
But I love it. It's very interesting. So if you got any kidney problems, I got you.
This is your girl.
That's my girl. Or I'm the girl.
You're the girl.
I'm the girl. Okay, what about you? You tell us.
And I'm Dr. Carleigh Golightly. I am in San Diego, California. My practice is called Empower Naturopathic Medicine, and you can find me on Instagram and Facebook as Holistic Fit Doc. And if you have found this series that we've done helpful about the 4 pillars, beating stress and anxiety holistically, head over to either my website or my Instagram and sign up to get them dosed into your email. So it's a email series. You'll get all of this information plus all the links sent straight to your inbox. And again, probably the easiest way to do that is to go to my Instagram page and click the link in my bio to get that. So that being said, thanks for listening in, everyone. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.